In this video, what we're going to look at is we're going to continue on with the idea of the gradient, but I want to show you some interesting things with the gradient, things that you can do as far as transparency with it. And then we're going to look at a new gradient function that was just added to, I think, last year's, which is quite fantastic as far as creating some of these gradients. All right, so let's jump into this. So I have this red circle that's here, and I'm just going to pull one off to the side here just to show you how I can overlay it. So we're going to go ahead and get the gradient tool, double click on it, best way to kind of grab that gradient. I'm going to apply this black and white to it, but I want it to go, right, I want it to go this way. And in fact, I want it to go the opposite way. So we're going to have the idea of the dark and light that's here, but here's the trick. Here's what's different is I'm going to click on the white slider, and instead of opacity being 100, I want it to be 0. And here's why I want it to be 0. So now I can take this over top of the red, right? And now I have that gradient here. I can adjust it in any way that I want, which is what I'm doing here. All right, I'm going to adjust this black. It's here, right? And you have all these other adjustments that you can now do with this. I can move this around, make that go, I can make this go higher, right? And you may look at that and go, well, that gradient's kind of gross, but watch what you can do now. Let's bring up the opacity palette, right? So instead of the blending being normal, let's change it to multiply, right? So now what we have is we have this nice dark gradient, and it goes from here, and that's, you know, going from there using the overlay, or using multiply. Now, you could change this to any one of these other ones that are here, right? We could do overlay, so you can see what happened here. It kind of had a nice color as well. Okay, so that's a really interesting way you can use the gradient tool. So one of the newer gradients that they had is this Freeform Gradient, which I love this Freeform Gradient. So I just click on the color, right? We're going to change it to a blue, let's say. Let's do points. I'm going to add in another one, right? Just by clicking. I'm now going to change that color. Let's do a red maybe. And let's add another one. You can add as many points or take away as many points. I kind of like what that's doing, but let's change this to a yellow maybe. Okay, so here's what we have so far. But here's what's great is I can make those bigger. I can make them smaller. What I like is that I can move these, so you can see it's actually changing as I'm moving that. So let's decide, you know what, I wanted the blue down here. And I like what's going on. Let's move this blue a little further out. With the red, you can see I can make this circle bigger. Let's do that. I like what's going on there. So there's your gradient, right, which is pretty cool. I can also do other effects with it. I can bring these closer and watch what happens when I bring it closer, right? I like this idea of what's happening here. You could also get rid of some points. So if I don't like the point here, right, I can click on it. Right, so you can move it around. If I want to get rid of that point, so let me just trash. Oh, right here. So I can say trash, right? So now it's just those two. Oops. So now what I can do is move this around. Instead of the points, I can change this to lines, and here's what line does. It's really interesting. So I'm going to go here to here, and then I'm going to do it here. And it makes a different blend, right? It's a more smoother blend that's there, right? So let's combine kind of what we just did. Let's duplicate this out. Let's go to my regular gradients. Let's change that. That's already at 0. That's great. Let's move this around like this. Put this right over top. Change its blend mode to multiply. And there we even have a shift in dark to light. I could also do the same thing. Let's put a transparency in the middle. What do I want to do? So delete that point and do something like this. right? So now we have it dark on both ends that are here. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And let's, right, so you could all of a sudden change this. Let's make that opacity at 50% maybe. Make this one at 50%. So now we're having this nice kind of fade as well as those colors. So there's a lot of things you can do with that gradient to add it to whatever you want to do.